Today we're going to go over how to install door jambs on our Flex series for both non-full height doors and full height doors. There are a couple framing details I wanted to go over prior to installing the door jambs. The first thing is making sure your vertical studs are running directly to the floor. The next thing is making sure that those studs are both perfectly plumb on each side of the door opening. If you're attaching to an existing wall, you want to make sure that flex stud attached to the wall is perfectly plumb, as well as the flex stud on the opposite side of that door opening. If you have any questions on how to properly frame door openings, go ahead and check out our video on that. When installing door jambs for a non-full height swing door, the first thing you'll do is pre-build your door header with a flex stud. You'll take a flex stud and cut it to 37 3/4 of an inch and install it onto your door header. As you can see, the flex stud's going to be a little bit shorter than the door header, and this is exactly what you want. You want the door header to be nice and tight to the vertical flex studs. Okay, so with my flex stud on the door header, we're going to take our 1¼ inch screws and attach the door header to that flex stud. With our door header attached to our flex stud, we're going to go ahead and slide in 2 of our flex L brackets into each end. With our L brackets set into place, we'll go ahead and move on to installing our vertical door jambs. The vertical door jambs for non-full height swing doors will come pre-cut. A couple basic things on the door jambs is they are going to attach directly to the flex stud, and they're going to run all the way to the floor, which is why we have that flex stud running all the way to the floor. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our door jambs onto the flex studs. The reason we're doing this is because it's going to help us set that door header height. Go ahead, we'll get these door jambs set up on here, and we'll move on to our door header. Take the door header that we pre-built with the flex stud and place it on top of the vertical door jambs. With the door header in place, we're going to go ahead and slide in one of our flex L brackets to establish one side of the opening. As you'll note, we don't have the vertical door jambs attached to the stud yet because we want to get our door header set first. So we'll go ahead and take our 3/4 inch framing screws and attach that L bracket to the stud. Once that's attached, we're going to take our torpedo level and we're going to level the door header. Once we have that perfectly level, we're going to go ahead and we're going to attach the other side. With the L brackets attached, the last thing we want to do is tighten the set screws in the L brackets to lock in the horizontal stud. So we'll go ahead, get those tightened, then move on to attaching our vertical door jambs. With the door header installed, we can now attach the door jamb to the flex stud. To attach the door jamb to the flex stud, we're going to use an 1¼ inch framing screw that was supplied with the product. This screw is going to run directly through the center of the open channel on the door jamb, the same as we did for the door header. We typically run 4 framing screws per vertical door jamb. So the first thing we're going to do is pick up our vertical jamb so it's nice and tight to the door header. Once we have that in place, we're going to take our first framing screw. We're actually going to run on an angle to make sure that there's a nice tight fit between the door header and the door jamb. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to run my 4 screws on this side, and I'm going to repeat the same process on the opposite side. With the vertical door jambs installed, the installation of the door jambs is now complete for non-full height swing doors. Before moving on, I wanted to go over a situation where the floor is not level within a door opening. Since these door jambs are pre-cut, we cannot cut them. So what this means is when we mock our vertical door jambs in place to set our door header, we want the door jamb to be on the higher side. From there, we will then level our door header and bring up the vertical door jamb to that door header. Now this can create a gap at the bottom. However, if we have any kind of pre-cut doors or anything like that, they're not going to work properly because they're based on that door opening height. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and move on to our full height door jambs. Before installing the door jambs for full height swing doors, I wanted to go over a couple things when it comes to installing those door jambs. The first thing is the door header is going to install directly into the flex track. The second thing is the door jambs are going to come into 120 inches and they're going to have to be cut to size. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with our door header. Take one end of the door header, place it onto the flex stud, and press it up into the flex track. Then bring up the opposite side of the door header onto the flex stud and into the flex track. Press it into place. You'll see there's a nice tight fit between the flex track and the door header. With the door header in place, we're now going to take a 2.5-inch framing screw supplied with the product and attach the door header to the flex track to the center of the open groove of the door header. Something to avoid when attaching the door header to the flex track is over tightening those attaching screws. If you over tighten them, it'll cause the flex track to flare out because the door header is pressed too far up into that flex track. If that happens, all you need to do is back out those screws and reattach it to make a nice tight fit between that flex track and the door header. With the door header installed, we're going to move on to how to measure for our vertical door jambs. To measure for the vertical door jambs, measure from the floor to the bottom edge of the ceiling track. You'll want to take the measurement on each side of the door opening just in case there's any variance in the height. We want these door jambs to be nice and tight to the floor. I'll go ahead, I'll take my measurements, and I'll cut my door jambs. Before cutting our vertical door jambs, I want to go over where we'll be measuring from on the door jamb for it to fit properly. You're going to be measuring from this point of the door jamb down to the height measurement you had taken for your door opening. With that in mind, we'll go ahead and cut our door jambs. With our door jambs cut, we'll go ahead and get them installed. Take your door jamb and place it onto the flex stud. Pick the door jamb up and swing the bottom in so there's a nice tight gap between the door jamb and the door header. If it's too long and you're fighting it too much, go ahead and take a little bit off that door jamb in order to get it to fit properly. So I'll go ahead, I'm going to get both door jambs installed and we'll get them attached. With our door jambs installed, we can now attach the door jamb to the vertical flex stud. This process is going to be the same as attaching our verticals for our non-full height swing doors. But to recap, we're going to take an 1.25-inch framing screw and run through the center of the open channel on the door jamb. We're going to use 4 screws per jamb. First thing you want to do is make sure the door jamb is nice and tight to the door header. We're going to run that screw on an angle to make sure there's a nice tight fit between the door header and the door jamb. So I'll go ahead and get my door jamb attached on this side and move on to the other side. This will conclude our video on how to install door jambs for both non-full height swing doors and full height swing doors. Before we end the video, I do want to go over one other special situation. We do offer an electric strike, therefore we have a electric strike door jamb. This door jamb requires you to cut both the miter end and the bottom end based on the height of that electric strike. I don't have any videos on this at this time. However, we do have written instructions on how to install electric strike door jambs. So please go ahead and check those out. And if you have any questions on anything we went over today, please contact our office.